Welcome to The Work of Warriors, a podcast dedicated to bringing mental wellness to the entertainment industry. I'm your host, Kim Rapach. This podcast is dedicated to the artists we've lost to mental health, addiction, and suicide, and to those who are still suffering in silence. Hey everybody, welcome back. If you recall, I had a guest back in December whose name is David Fischette, and he came on the podcast to let us know about a benefit concert that he was hosting for the holidays in Nashville. And I brought him on and we talked about the benefit concert, the mission behind his work with artists, and he invited me to come to the concert. So I grabbed a friend and in December went to a holiday benefit concert in Nashville at Belmont, and it was an incredible evening. I got to see some old friends, meet some new friends. One of the artists was a group and their music was just incredible. And I immediately fell in love with them. Their music was uplifting and it was fun. And they were just adorable and funny and beautiful inside and out. And like I said, just immediately fell in love with them. So after the concert, I was invited back to the green room. And I got to meet this group of artists. And so I started talking to them about mental health and their mission with their music and their gifts. And it seemed like such a good fit. And so I am absolutely thrilled to introduce to you today's guest, the Shindellas. Welcome to the Work of Warriors. So nice to see you.
You as well.
So I had the pleasure of finding you guys in Nashville at a benefit concert hosted by David Fischette back in December of 23. And I had the pleasure of chatting with you, Casey, but can each of you introduce yourselves for our listeners?
Yes, indeed. My name is Tamara Shanice, aka Texas Tam of the Shindellas.
I'm Stacy. Stacella Blue Shinny. As you can see, I'm always rocking my blue.
And I'm Casey. They call me Love Jones.
Well, it's so nice to meet you again. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome to the Work of Warriors. I, as both a trauma survivor and a coach, I pay attention to what my body tells me. And when I heard your music for the first time in Nashville back in December, I was moved. And I don't consider myself to be somebody who's super artsy or like just well versed in the world of arts. But when something moves me, I know it moves me. And I feel it, and I feel it very intensely. And that's how I felt when I watched you guys and I heard you. And so after the show, I had the pleasure of meeting you. Yeah. And so I felt joy, and I felt peace, and I felt love, and I felt hope. And so when I had the opportunity to go backstage and meet you, of course, 3 sentences in, I was chatting with Casey and I was like, how do you feel about mental health and artists? And just learned that is also a huge passion of yours. So thank you so much for just taking the time to be here and to speak into mental wellness for artists. It's what this podcast is completely dedicated to, bringing mental wellness to the arts, to the entertainment industry, and normalizing conversations around mental health to just eradicate the taboo around it, because we all have mental health and we all need to protect it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think one way of doing that is having these conversations. So thanks again for being here.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So where did the name Shindellas come from?
It's actually, it comes from a made-up word. And the word we use is shindo. Shindo is a word we use in the studio and like come up with a great idea and get super inspired. You get goosebumps or chills. That feeling is like, oh, that's a shindo. And we are the ladies who bring the shindo, that feeling of excitement and inspiration. The Shindellas bring the shindo. So that's where we got our name.
Well, then that's what I felt.
I didn't. Job well done.
Yes, I didn't have a word for it, but definitely shindo. I love that, the Shindellas. How long have you been performing together?
Gosh, about 7. It was 7 years in April. We came together April 2017 and just got right to work. And we're performing before we had recorded anything. It was like kind of our way of workshopping the songs, the early songs. So yeah, it's been a ride.
How did you meet?
Well, we were brought together by a songwriting and production duo, Louis York, comprised of Claude Kelly and Chuck Harmony. They were on a search. They had basically moved here to Franklin, Tennessee from, was it LA?
And New York.
And New York.
Kind of just made this our hub.
And they wanted to basically create a safe space for artists to be themselves, including themselves as Louis York. And they wanted to find their women counterparts. So Stacy was the seed member. They did a search for about 2 years. They found me online. They found Case at a networking event in LA. And I mean, the worlds collided in February of 2017. And it's been magical ever since.
That's right.
Wow, that's incredible. I knew about Louis York. They performed as well, right? Is that
Yes.
They were there in December. I did not know that that's how they found you.
Yeah. Crazy story.
So
Every time we tell it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard that before, where each of you were like scouting.
Oh yeah,
Like they were out scouting for talent,
we have
but
definitely
2 years.
worked with talent scouts to search for Shindellas in like all over the country, and the guys were so particular. You know, I would bring them like people that were potential Shindellas, and they'd be like, nah, and I'm like, what? Because I got a little taste of it, just like this bit of a taste, and I was like, I need this. That feeling that you were describing about seeing 3 women, one mission, one sound, it does bring hope. It does bring so much for us, the people singing it, for people who see that, for children who see that. It does bring hope for something. Yeah. And we always say that when women come together, powerful things can happen. And it's so true. Like you can feel that shindo happening just by us being in agreement on the same mission. So when we got together, we felt it, you know, and it took some time, a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, a lot of dreaming, a lot of tears, a lot of no's, and some pictures. Oh, you can't see them, but their faces up on the wall, just like, this has to be it. You know, like it wasn't the surface things like, can they sing? How tall are they? Can they, you know, like it wasn't that at all. That's what I was looking for at first, but really what was taking its time to actually come into fruition was the deeper part, like empathy and sympathy and understanding and the same shared mission, and, you know, being able to having trust in a group, and all of that was being brewed before, you know, I could even, you know, imagine what it looked like. So it's really a powerful and beautiful thing, the bringing together of the Shindellas. It was powerful.
Yeah, that sounds like it. And isn't it amazing when you have your version of your dream and then you start bringing it to life, and then it grows and you realize, oh, I think this was already planned for us. And it was bigger than I could have ever imagined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So what is your shared mission? How would you describe your vision for, you know, how you want to bring your art into the world, or how, you know, what you try to accomplish, what your mission is when you bring your music into the world?
Well, that was a part of it. When women come together, powerful things can happen. Is it powerful change?
We go back and forth.
Powerful things, powerful things. You know, that is definitely a part of it. To be that.
Sorry.
Change is
the thing.
Change is the thing.
That, and being that representation in the music industry, women getting along, women supporting each other, women, you know, sharing in something together instead of being combative and arguing or fighting and showing that part. Competitions. And no, this is us coming together and being like, yes, girl, be your best, shine, you know what I mean? Shine bright. And that's powerful. So that's part of our mission, is to just be that representation in music.
Yeah. We always say we want to be what we needed to see as young girls. And I think that we've done so well in that, and I know that we've healed parts of our younger selves by this journey and by actually being on one accord with this mission. So it's absolutely amazing.
These are the conversations we don't have enough of.
Yeah.
Because I feel like artists, there's so much of that is within art. And for consumers, right, who aren't in the thick of it, I think sometimes it's easy just, like you were saying, Stacey, like, you're an artist and you can sing and it sounds great and we're entertained, but there's so much life and heart behind what you're actually doing. And music is a way to bring your heart forward.
Yeah.
I have to find other ways because I can't sing.
But you can
but
do the
okay,
work
so
of warriors.
Right.
Just have to keep the sentences straight lined. There's no pitching, there's no singing. So you were talking about supporting each other. And I couldn't help but think, okay, 3 people doing life together, there's clearly conflict. How do you handle your conflict? How do you address the normal humanness of the day-to-day irritations and triggers and that sort of thing?
Well, I think we've gotten it, how we've handled it has grown as we have grown.
Yeah.
The way we handled it in 2017 was very different than the way it looked in 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just funny because in 2017, we were more fragile.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing was more eggshell fragile. For me personally, I wanted it so bad and it was finally coming true. And I just wanted to keep it together. In those moments, I'm like, anything could break this up. It's so precious. Mm-hmm. But that really made, it put up walls. It put up all these like barriers that it didn't allow us to grow in that space. So I personally had to learn to let go and let it be bigger than what I had imagined and let it be what it was going to be, and I used to say, I'm like water. I'm fluid because like I'm the Virgo structure or not. I just need structure. Like, let's do this drive. Like if we're working on something together, I want to see you working on this with me, and I did not want to take days off or didn't want to take breaks. And they taught me how to give grace and to have empathy and be like, hey, she might just need a little time to breathe today. And like, I didn't know what that meant, honestly. Like, I'm like, what? Time to breathe? You breathe every day, work and breathe. But there's so much more that we need in order to show up our best selves. So I've definitely learned that through, just being in a group with them.
Yeah. Grace and empathy have definitely been our cornerstones. But I will say when we first came together, we got what we call soul naked with each other. So Stacey had basically remodeled the garage on our little creative space and made it like I guess you could call it a practice space for us. Like she put up panels. Yeah, it was like a rehearsal room. But we had like a huge carpet in there and we would sit there and drink wine and meditate and cry and talk about all of our goals and our dreams and what we hoped for the Shindellas and for ourselves individually. And I think that really helped bring us together and bond us because we realized that we weren't alone. Like there were so many similarities according to like what we wanted for ourselves. And so coming together and like being able to like really push that vision and make it, I guess you can call it tangible with the Shindellas was like the beautiful thing. So I think a lot of what the work that we did in the beginning is what's carrying us right now. And it feels really good.
And I would say trust is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I would say coming into our 7th year, 7's the number of completion, which also means it's the number of new beginnings. And it's been we started this year with our first major tour opening for October London, 22 cities on a tour bus. I mean, that was a whole new way of being together and navigating a whole new thing. We came back, we were all pretty burnt out.
A lot of suitcases.
Yeah, we overpacked.
Unnecessary.
We overpacked.
And we overpacked. It was traumatizing.
Yeah. Never again.
But we also had to learn a lot and be flexible, work outside of our comfort zone individually and together. Mm-hmm. And since then, I think we've really had to dig deep and come back together and say, kind of like we did in 2020, what do we want? And when you come back to the core value, the shared values of empowering women, making music that's about self-love, self-worth, self-respect, not limiting ourselves to just music, being bold and going out and working with organizations and in our community and the communities we came from to help celebrate and empower people and amplify voices doing good work. Like, that's why we're so excited about your podcast, because it's so much more than just a song. You know, the song is the entry point. When we come back to that, then it becomes easy again, and it makes having difficult conversations easier. So I think to answer your question about conflict, it's everybody individually, whether you're us or just anyone in the world, finding your center and make sure you're not just reacting, and at your center, remembering what your truth is and remembering, I love these people. I trust these people. I know these women have my best interest at heart, and our destinies are enmeshed. And I also really believe in them. And so when I don't believe in myself, I'm like, oh no, but mirrors, mirror, mirror on the wall. We about to get it all, you know? So I think trust.
Yeah, it's good.
Trust is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there are 3 types of relationships that will really bring your junk forward, your emotional junk. And it's, in my opinion, intimate partner relationships, parenting, and touring bandmates.
Very specific.
Yes,
It's very true.
I just believe that to my core.
it's so real.
No, it's so true.
That's very true. We did learn
Yeah.
so much on tour. Oh my gosh. It was an experience.
Yeah.
We are looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah.
And like, now we know.
Well, that's a good sign.
I know I'm never bringing a bag of just stuff I'll never use.
One
like,
hoodie.
like maybe I'll use
One
it.
zip,
Let's bring
sweatpants.
it. And
Yeah.
I just carried
Sure.
it for 3 months.
Sure.
I'm never doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Probably
I go away
won't get it on
for a
tour, but-
weekend and I have to check a bag.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
You
can't
just
imagine
don't
3
know
months.
what the vibe's going to be.
Yeah.
And you
we
want options.
You want options.
Thank you. You get it. You understand.
We bought 3
I don't get
bags.
the touring
each.
piece, but I get the packing. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Never again.
One important thing that you said is that we're the versions of ourselves that we are who we needed to see as children. And so that leads me to whatever you're comfortable sharing, where does your passion for mental health and mental wellness come from?
Oh my goodness. I would have to say for me, I started singing at a very early age. I was about 7 years old. And from the age of about 7 to 23, I suffered from like severe performance anxiety. And I had no idea that I had this. We didn't name it. I never went to a therapist or anything and got diagnosed with it, but I would look up my symptoms and I'd be like, this is what this is. And it wasn't until I moved to Nashville that I actually had to reckon with it. Because now I'm with 2 other beautiful, talented women who are pretty much forcing me to be my best self. And even in my fear and in my worry and in my doubt, I was like, I still have to get on this stage and bring my best self on this stage for them. So it kind of caused me to go inward. And I talked to them about this too. When I first got here, I talked about how mental health is such a real deal because it's a contract that you're making with yourself. Like the performance anxiety, it's like, who lied to you? You're amazing at what you do. Why are you afraid? Like who's judging you? Like nobody in this room could stand in your shoes and do what you do. So like what is this coming from? And so it really caused me to do some soul searching, and it made me passionate about mental health because I was like, I know that I'm not the only one suffering from this. So if I could be a testimony for someone else who suffers from this, because I have no problem telling people, yeah, I had performance anxiety and I overcame it for the Shindellas and it feels great. You know what I mean? I have no problem talking about it because I know that there are so many people that suffer from that in silence out of fear of being judged or feeling weak or people looking at them as weak. But yeah, that's really been a driving force for me. And
Yeah.
I've done the work.
And-
It feels
yeah,
good.
she done pushed through that bad boy.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you asked a very important question. Who lied to you?
Who
Right?
lied?
So much.
That's the
So
truth.
much of what we experience and that we're afraid of is familiar. Something's feeling familiar. And so when you can get curious and go, who lied to you? Or how is this familiar? What experience have I had where it didn't end well? Right? Because our nervous systems are constantly just trying to protect us. And when we can normalize that and realize, oh, my body's trying to protect me, but I'm not in danger anymore. Those sorts of things. And you can step more freely. And then every time you do, and I think that's what you're describing, every time you do, your nervous system calms. It doesn't mean you don't get excited or you don't get nervous, but you don't have that debilitating anxiety because your nervous system has had practice to say, oh, I didn't die. I can do this.
Yeah. It's so true. It is so true. And they were the both of them, Casey and Stacey, were both so gracious. I would have to say everybody here at Weirdo Workshop, because I mean, it's crazy to they found me on social media and I was a version of myself on social media. But then when you put that version on a stage, it wasn't the same. It was different. And it was something that I couldn't actually help. Because my body was just in fight or flight, and it was like, all right, let's just get through this so we can actually go hide somewhere, but they were so gracious, and they covered me and they kept me focused on the main goal. So I think that was such a blessing, having a tribe of people around you that's keeping you.
Do you remember we used to hold hands on stage?
Yeah.
We would the three of us hold hands on stage and bow our heads and breathe in front of everybody before we started our set, because that's how much we needed to just ground and center and let our nervous system do what you're saying. Come down, bro. We're okay.
We're good.
This is our space. Yeah, it's so true, Tammy.
Yeah.
And that's so normal and so human.
It is.
And so good job, just with the vulnerability and modeling that.
Yeah.
Honestly, people loved that.
Yeah.
They loved it. Then we come out and sing "Happy to See You," and it was such a moment, such a vibe.
Yeah.
So Tam, you said I did the work. Can you describe what that means? I don't know that. I think that's different for everyone, and I don't know that people always necessarily know what that means. What do you mean do the work? What was that for you?
Well, I tried many things, and mind you, I grew up in a Christian household. And so everything was about prayer. Everything was about going to God and, and finding your purpose and all that good stuff. And I have to be honest and say, I kind of was in a space when I first moved here to Nashville where I was like, God, what is it? What am I doing wrong? How am I, and I think the main thing was I had to not make it about me. I had to remember that I'm a vessel and everything that I do is an extension of God. And so I want people to see God when they see me, and God is not fearful. He didn't give me a spirit of fear. And so I had to continue to remind myself of that. I did try everything. I went to a doctor. I talked to a doctor about it, and I said, they prescribed me what they call beta blockers. But then on the other side of that, I was like, I don't really want to be attached to anything. I don't want to be dependent on any type of medicine. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, because there are people that actually need it. But for me, I felt like I needed to do a lot more mental and soul work first before I took that on as an option. And so that was what I did. I did a lot of that mental and soul work. I got those reps in. We performed so much in the early days. And so that kind of helped me exercise that muscle.
Naps before the show.
Yeah. Because I
disappear and take a nap.
I literally would. And then also just having conversation and being honest about it. I had no problem telling people, you guys have anxiety. I'm nervous. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fine, and there's only so much people can do because they're not actually in your body to experience what you're experiencing. But again, that grace and that empathy, that kind of helped cover me in that time was important. So I would say having a tribe as well is what helped me push through that. But that was the work I did. I did a lot of soul searching.
Being on stage, I witnessed her work on stage where she would be nervous. We could see that, and we can all feel it, and she would look to the left or right, and see us. she's wild. She's a big energy on stage. You've seen this. So you see that and you're like, okay, I can match this energy. She's safe. I'm safe. We're all here together. Then we can it's almost like the invisible link between us that uplifts the person who might not be as strong that day, might be, not, whatever the case may be. Just seeing somebody give their all on stage is enough to uplift you and motivate you to show up a little bit more and give it all. I've been on stage where I've been sick to death and seen them killing it. So I'm like, I'm going to have to kill this. Just all I got. And it's always worth it. And it makes you stronger. It's a good practice. So I've seen that work from Tammy too. From all of us.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And have you had experiences, I'm assuming, where it starts out with one energy and you look at each other and you have that invisible link and then it clicks, even though you've already started? Like the audience probably doesn't know, but you know, and then you're just even brighter.
And that happens more often now. That's the trust thing. That's early days when you're nervous and it's new and you don't know what's going to happen. It's so much harder to kind of break through. Whereas now you can be feeling all the things. You can be mad at each other. But then there's this moment where you're on stage and it's like, doo-doo, and you're like,
sing.
Yes, we're doing it. And then then you lock in and then it's like, I love you. Because it's a thing. It's a living organism that you're creating. It's a once in a lifetime experience every time you're on stage. And so you just got to bring whatever you have. And we have each other.
Yeah.
So we're lucky.
We're lucky.
Love that. Yeah. So what about you, Stacy or Casey? Just sharing your passion for mental health, where that comes from, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
For me, my passion stems from probably around the age 15. I was forced to live out on my own. By the time I turned 16, I had my own apartment. I could not really, in my mind, I could not turn to my family. So I was literally out on my own. I was already doing voiceover work. And I was making my own money at 15. So I was like, I'm going to get my own place. I moved out to Chicago. I got my own little studio apartment at 15. And I became an adult really fast. And I didn't know where to turn. I became angry and resentful. I became very mad at my family, my dad, who I just wanted to want me. And, and so I turned to music, and I turned to, my mental health was my music. Music saved me. And I have an angel god sister named Julie Frost who taught me how to turn that emotion into writing. And she taught me how to write music. I turned to this family-owned production company, Joy Art Music. They kind of took me in under their wings, taught me the ropes about production, making music, and playing the guitar, live performances, voiceovers. They gave me my first job with voiceovers. So they really took me in at a really pivotal point and showed me how to use music to really express myself. And since then, I have been just taking it along with me. I feel like I'm so much better now, past the whole resentment with my family. My parents are so close now, and I completely understand. My mom was 19 with 2 kids when she had me, and it was hard for her. And every decision she made just seemed like hard, wrong decisions. So she did the best she could. And I really appreciate, the relationship we have now. But it took some time for me to learn how to really process that through music.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you had music. And I can't imagine where things might have gone if you didn't have it.
I know. Yeah. Especially being in Chicago. My mom left Chicago because it was so dangerous, but it was all I knew at the time. My family was there, her twin brother, my uncle's cousins, we grew up together, it was always us together. And then she just moved us to this random place, and I was getting bullied. And I was like, I can't stay here. I have to leave, and it was just a lot of really hardships. And I left out on my own. And it was music. It was the way that I could get out my anger, and say, hey, nobody cares about me, but I care about myself, and then believe it when I read it or sang it. It was helpful for me.
A warrior is someone who fights for themselves first so they can fight for everybody else. Surely you're familiar with Porter's Call in Nashville.
Yeah,
down the street.
You mentioned it.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. Yeah, absolutely.
I just interviewed Al Andrews, who was the founder. He's the founder of Porter's Call. And he asks people when he's speaking, what is the song that saved your life? And that's what I thought of when you were talking, Stacey, like so many songs, and not only songs that you were hearing, but that you were taught to then create and to pour out of that pain. I think that's just, I don't want to miss the fact that that's what brings us together, I think, as humans.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really powerful in so many different ways. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I feel like case.
Wow.
Feel like sharing?
Well.
I forgot to tell you this was going to turn into group therapy.
Oh my God. You said, what's the song that saved your life? And I almost just burst into tears.
Oh.
So
you can.
I'm finding my
Tears are
center.
welcome.
Oh my gosh. Don't tell me. Don't threaten me with a good time.
All emotions are welcome.
Yeah, we've got to feel our feelings. I think I'm so passionate about mental health because of my own mental health issues. I was diagnosed with ADHD and depression at a really young age. And navigating that was difficult because I was really resistant to medication. So they would put me on these really high doses of medication that would then make me have these really huge come downs, which would then make the depression 1,000 times worse. And it was just this all, kind of while navigating puberty. And it wasn't until I got out on my own. I moved to LA when I was 19 with $40 and no practical skills at all or any idea what I was doing. But here, I'm still here.
You're alive.
I made it. Hello. But it was really difficult. It was a really dark time. And I felt so alone for so long. And intellectually, I knew I wasn't, but emotionally, I did not. Spiritually, I did not. And the other side of that is that I'm generally one of the happiest, most joyful, most energetic people that most people ever meet. And I had a friend in high school, Christina, who could always tell, and she'd be like, it's the Casey show. Everyone thinks you're this one thing. And I am. I mean, I truly am a deeply joyful person. It's a part of my nature. But with that extreme joy also comes the extreme ability to see what's under the rock. And during that time in LA where I was trying to find myself as an artist while battling suicidal ideation and coming to terms with some childhood sexual abuse that I had just packed way back there, was so treacherous. And I did not have money. I have an amazing family, but I didn't have a family who could support me financially. And so it was a lot of just trying to figure it out. Reading books. I couldn't afford therapy. Reading books, I think, and there were so many angels along the way. Like, there's this example of a woman. I was on the 212 bus. I was going to a session. I had to take the 212 to get some train to go to Carson. I lived in Hollywood. It took hours. And this woman sat across from me. And I do not remember her name, but I remember her face, like in a glowing orb. And she just started talking to me. She was probably in her 50s, a Black woman. And she just, I don't know if she sensed something, because I definitely wasn't, I was nervous for this trip. So I don't think I had like open energy. But she started talking to me, and she she was telling me about this spiritual center, Agape, which is an interfaith spiritual center in LA, which is amazing. Michael Bernard Beckwith leads it.
Yeah.
And that's where she was going. And she was kind of like, come with me. And I was like, well, I have this session. And she just started talking to me about her story. And she gave me her copy of A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And it was probably the first kind of self-help book, you know, I'd ever read. And it was this stranger, this beautiful woman giving it to me. And I devoured that book. And it was also the first time where I was hearing someone's story and being like, oh, I'm not that unique. I'm not alone. Like, these feelings feel so singular, but they're actually not. And then that opened up the world to me of hearing these stories and becoming more open with people about things, trusting people a little more. And to be fair, it took me a long time. Like, it took me really until I moved here to fully trust that I didn't have to try to always be the person to keep the peace, that I didn't have to try to anticipate everyone else's feelings, needs, and desires, and to be safe, to feel safe enough and stable enough to turn that back on myself. Mm-hmm. It took me a long time.
Because she was definitely doing all those things when she first got here. She was keeping the peace. She was making sure everybody was okay. You know, everybody.
Yeah, but you got to put on your oxygen mask.
Yeah.
And there was a point, and they experienced it. They and my husband experienced it more than anybody else. There was a point where I was at oxygen, and I just had to shut all the way off. And it was so scary. And that was recent. But I also knew that it would be okay. I was just like, I will be okay. Everything will be okay. But the reason I'm passionate about it and talk about it is because I live it. And it's so hard. And there's such a stigma. And like Tam said, we're not in each other's bodies. Someone could be articulating how they're feeling, but then they look fine. It's like being disabled, but nobody can see it. And so it's hard sometimes to be empathetic. It's hard sometimes to have compassion when the person who looks like they have it the most together it is exhibiting these strange behaviors every now and then. And you're like, then they're falling apart inside. And I kind of approach the world that way, with with the perspective of, you really don't know what people are going through. And even sometimes if you do know, it may not feel big enough to you, but that doesn't mean it's not rocking them to their core. So empathy and compassion are like my baseline, my North Star, kindness and respect, and just trying to be that woman on the bus, you know, just if I could be that woman on the bus for anybody, then I've done good work. Yeah. And then to get to do that with our music, the amount of people I've had going through divorces who are like, thank you so much for Reconsider. Thank you for Ain't That the Truth. I only listened to those 2 songs. The amount of people right now being like, thank you for Good as Gold. I play Good as Gold every morning when I wake up. I play Lullaby every night for my kids. I play Happy to See You every day for my kindergartners. Like, those things are life-changing. And for us to be able to take, as Carrie Fisher said, take our broken hearts and turn it into art, and then have that art heal our broken hearts. And, you know, they break and they don't heal smaller, they heal bigger. They just get bigger and bigger. So, yeah, that's where it comes from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty and your authenticity. It's so powerful. And I think, especially for trauma survivors, we develop the ability to never let them see you sweat, right? It's not safe to be visibly upset. And so we're real good at putting on that veneer. And so I appreciate your honesty and your authenticity. I think collectively, I believe collectively, it's so easy for, again, consumers of art to assume that that shiny, beautiful veneer that you have on stage is who you are all the time, and that you're always happy and you're always just with the jingle, right? No, you're human beings. You have every single emotion that everyone else has who are not musicians or not artists. And again, I think these conversations are the only way to destigmatize mental health as if it's something that only some people wrestle with, because everybody has emotions. And we're conditioned, I believe, to think that there's people with mental health issues and there's people without, but we don't look at physical health that way, right? You wouldn't judge somebody who has asthma or, God forbid, something worse. But if somebody has anxiety or, panic attacks or depression, there's that, we still have way too much judgment and a lack of understanding of what it actually is. And, that finding your center, to come back to that, I think is huge, because everyone has one and everyone needs to find their own. And only you can know what yours is. And so, as someone else who has also wrestled with suicidal ideation, I appreciate your honesty and, talking about the fear of that and how hard it is. And also to be able to bring hope to the conversation that we do recover. And the more we can find our center, the more we can fight for ourselves, the less likely those darker moments come. But even when they do, as long as we do the work, again, whatever that looks like for you, we can come out brighter on the other side. And just like with the broken heart that grows bigger, it heals bigger and bigger. I think so does our hope, so does our resiliency. We come out of those dark moments so much stronger and so much more resilient. And I firmly believe, even now I'm in a season of extra challenging things in life, and I'm just every day so grateful for my resiliency. And I've only become resilient by going through the hard stuff and being committed to fighting for myself. So when I hear your stories, like you're warriors, you're fighting for yourselves in your own individual ways, but also as a group and as a family. And it's beautiful. So thank you all for sharing. And, the other thing I want to say is your values. It just seems obvious to me that your values exude from you. They're not just words that you're saying. I can feel that you live them out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. This is amazing.
Yeah, this is amazing.
It made me think about something, because I was just talking about something similar a couple weeks ago. And a family member told me that I seem like I have it together. Like I feel good. Like I feel happy. I feel balanced. And I think I found my center. I found things that I can do, that I can practice to bring me back to gratitude and joy and peace and the things that make me feel good. Like I feel like I found that for myself. But she was asking me what are those things that she could do if she wasn't feeling that. Like sometimes she just wakes up and she's like, hi, like she's like, what do I do in those moments? What do I do? And I was like, something that I do is I say, oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. Any chance that I can get to say that to somebody, good morning, how you doing? I'm good. That's great. It slowly brings me out. And I've noticed it brings me out of my funk. Just saying that's great, or it's great, or you're great, or I'm great. It's just something about the word great and using it. And it's just saying that over and over again turns and my attitude. So I just told her that, and I wonder how she's doing with it. But it just reminds me of that.
Great.
She's great.
Doing great.
But that was my little solution for her, because I feel like it helps. I don't know, it made me think about it.
I love that. Well, neurons that fire together wire together. And so the thoughts that you choose to have impact the emotions that you feel. And I'm not one to say that we can just good vibe our way out of everything. I don't believe in that. However, mindset does matter, and what you choose to think matters, and how you choose to talk to yourself matters. And that is a huge piece of optimal mental health. How you talk to yourself, the words that you use. And if you say negative things about yourself, you're not going to feel well. I woke up this morning and I was like, I feel heavy. I feel lethargic. And I just took note. Those are just descriptor words. Okay. Well, how do I shift that? What is going to be great about today? And, one of, similar to what I think you're saying, Stacey, is I will look for the light in the day. Right. And so as I looked at my schedule, this interview was the light of the day. It was part of it. I mean, it's not the whole day, but it's, the first one. I was like, oh, and at 12:30, I get to talk with the Shindellas. And I started imagining what this conversation would feel like and what I wanted it to feel like. And then all of a sudden, I don't feel so heavy and lethargic anymore.
Yay. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that. I would have to say one of the things, just in lieu of you guys speaking about like what helps, not only setting good intentions, but also operating from a place of gratitude has been a blessing for me, because I'm like, even if it's bad, we have a saying, and so we love. When it's bad, and so we love. When it's good, and so we love. And that, like, having that mindset with any and everything always shifts, because it could always be so much worse. There's somebody right now that wishes they were in our shoes, or, you know what I mean? And it feels really good to operate from that place of gratitude, because it's like a reminder, like, all is really well. Yeah. Have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, because you're honoring what's hard. You're being honest with how you feel, but you're also like, and so we love, to me, sounds like action.
Yes.
Because we can get paralyzed in fear of, oh no, what do? I don't know what to do.
So
I mean, you
love.
can say, and so we love, to just about anything.
Yes.
Not everything.
Yeah. Marley pooped in the house.
And so we love.
So we love. So can I borrow that? Can I share that with you in my house? Because that is beautiful.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
I love that. So one of the things that I love about this podcast is getting to hear from different people and different artists what they do on a regular basis to protect their mental health. So you've named a couple. What are some other things that you do, whether it be to return to your center or to try to stay balanced ahead of it? So I think, so for me, I teach people how to get back to their center based on their personality and their story and their nervous systems. And then what we do is we go, okay, how do we implement that on a regular basis so that you're not just pulling tools out of the tool belt when you need them, but they're just part of who you are now. This is just who you are.
Like
what are
some of your prescription?
Exactly. Yeah. So what are some of your tools that you use? Mine is church and the Bible for sure. I go to church every Sunday, and this is similar conversation. My pastor has been talking about the battle in your mind. He talks about how if you have too much world in your head, then you don't have room for word, and the word is truth. So we have world in our head, and sometimes everything in this world is here and then gone tomorrow. You can't rely on that. Everything is temporary. But true, the word is forever. It's eternal. So if you don't have room, if you have too many lies or temporary things in your head, it can cause confusion and depression, and there's a lack of trust, and you don't trust yourself because you're telling yourself things that aren't true, and it's just like a cycle. But so the word is something I trust and believe in and use on a daily basis, from Bible study on Wednesday to Sunday service
and, you know, just conversations about it. You know, just each book has its own story to feed the truth about who I am. And that's what I love to do.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I would say for me, I try to do affirmations as often as possible in the mornings just to start my day. And you can literally just find those on YouTube. Like they have so many amazing like affirmations that you can do for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then exercise, regular exercise, releasing those good endorphins really, really helps so much. And sunlight, just getting outside, walking, being out in nature. Like I felt so connected to nature, especially being here, because I didn't really go outside much when I lived back home in Dallas. But here, like Tennessee has such a beautiful landscape, and they have so many like trails and parks and places you can just go walk and feel the sun on your face and just think out loud and all of that. Like it feels amazing. So those are definitely some of my go-tos.
Yeah. Walking is a huge one for me too. Like just going for a walk outside, preferably. Because it kills two birds. You get to be out in nature, because that's where I am reminded of truth. Like I think about what you're saying, that there's so much world in your head, and we start once it's in there, we just start inventing and adding to it and creating narratives and stories. But when you're out by a tree, you're like, no, but this is the world.
Yeah,
this is what's real.
And it's doing what it's supposed to do, and what it was created
effortlessly.
To do. Why can't I?
Why can't I? And so, yeah. So I go outside, and I like to go, if I can, go be in nature. Luckily, I live right next to a big conservancy. So I get to go walk almost every day. But also it puts you back in your body. And for me, and I think a lot of people who are survivors of physical abuse or sexual abuse, it's really easy when you wake up in not a good place, or when something happens in your day, to totally disassociate from your body. So it's like you're here watching your body move, and so getting back in my body is really important for me. And if I can do it outside, great. But I also will just turn on music and dance like a maniac in my house. And I do not care. I don't care if it's cringy. I'm just going to dance and just remember. And I say affirmations when I work out. I say, I'm safe in my body. I'm safe in my body. I'm safe in my spirit. My body is my home. My body is good to me. Like I repeat these things in my head. And that really helps. Also giving myself a victory early in the day. Like, we have a tendency to have like these huge, especially when you're a creative or a big dreamer, you're like, I have to do this and this and this and this and this. And you're so focused on the big giant vision that you forget about all the little steps in between. And sometimes the victory is like, I cleaned the toilets in my house. Like there hasn't been a dish in my sink for 2 weeks. There has not been, and that's a huge victory for me. And acknowledging like we compare ourselves so much. So it is so easy to do, to be like, oh, their home looks like this. My home is like this. And it's like, well, they have different strengths than you. They have different needs than you. They're experiencing things differently than you. And so congratulating yourself on the things you overcome, not bullying myself for the ways I'm failing. That's been a big shift. So giving myself a victory. Like I went for a walk today, huge victory. I can walk through the day being like, I did that, and now we're here. This podcast, huge victory. We've been trying to do this since December. Okay. This is a huge victory for us all.
Right.
Yeah.
Count your wins. Yep. I start my coaching calls with, what are your wins? Because we're just we're not trained to do that. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it's such an important part of mental health, because it's so easy to forget what we did do, because we're striving so hard to accomplish what we want to do. And, I believe we're surrounded by messaging that just says, it's not enough. You're not enough. You need this, you need that. And it's just not true. Everything you just talked about is within you.
Yes.
There's no big magical, solution to being well. aside from returning to yourself and
Mm-hmm.
accessing what's within you with your breath, with getting outside, with getting back to your body, to, exercising, and the words that you choose. It's, the spaces that you choose to engage in. It's all within you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Love that.
And I love that you said dance, because, I mean, Tam, you've been singing since you were 7, and Stacy, you were on your own at 15, and Casey, you're a survivor. So I think you would probably all agree that you've been conditioned out of play and out of childhood very early for various reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one of, I think, the most important pieces of optimal mental health is childlike play. To dance, to twirl, to sing, to play with Barbies, to play with Play-Doh, to do a spirograph, all the things that we loved that were so,
cartoons.
to paint, to watch cartoons, anything childlike. I just don't think we talk enough about the healing power of that. And, we think I think everybody gets conditioned out of it, like in middle school around that age.
Yeah.
But when you have additional factors in your story that really push you into adulthood and into figuring out how to survive, that becomes what you do. There's no surviving in play.
Yeah.
Right.
That's in the book too, in the Bible. They
Mm.
asked him, how do I get a good seat in heaven? Like, what do I ask Jesus? Like, what do I do to get my son to sit next to you in heaven? He's like, how do I get up there? Who's going to be the leader in heaven? And Jesus got a little kid and was like, if you're not like this little kid, you're not getting up there. You have to be like this kid, not just pure in mind and vulnerable and, innocent, but the play is in there too. Like, kids are free to play, and they see people as, people to play with. Hi person, how are we going to play together today? Do this like me, let's explore together. Like, that is in the Bible.
Yeah.
That is true.
And also that childlike faith.
Yes,
faith. Having that, I yearn for that every single day, because I watch children all the time and I'm like, you're just so free. You don't care. I mean, you will jump on somebody's back. A stranger, you will just run up to a stranger. I'm like, that childlike faith is just, and that trust is just such a beautiful thing to me. And I always am so inspired anytime I'm around a bunch of kids, because I'm like, you guys are nuts, but this is, I can use a little bit more of this myself.
Yeah, and that genuine just curiosity, right? To see the wonders of the world without all the messaging that you just get, with more time on earth. Have to resist against.
There's a new study, I think it just came out, or it came out last year, that talks about play and how, and I don't remember the percentage, but it's like a very dramatic percentage that developing a habit through repetition, is one way to do it, but developing a new habit through play is like 100 times more effective. And I think it's like 90 days when you're just kind of muscling through it, and it's less than halved if it's through play. Like, that play is not, it's not a game.
Yeah.
Okay, it's real. Like,
it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
I don't play with my play.
I'm playing on my play.
In the winter, so I'm in the Chicago area, and so winters are brutal, and we have dogs, and so I will, there's just been times where I've had like a near panic attack, like, did I let him back in before I left? Right. And so one thing that I do, that my husband taught me how to do actually, is to do something silly before you leave the house. Like, look at each one of them, say their names, and do something silly. And then that's what I have to go back to. Like, oh no, I sang the choo-choo song. I was singing a choo-choo song on my way out. They're in there.
I love it.
But I think it just reinforces the play, the silly. It's way more powerful. It's not just childlike. It's important for adults to do. I mean, think about like senior centers, right? They bring back play.
Yeah. Games.
They bring back arts. They bring back crafts.
Dancing.
I think we just need to stop taking it out of the middle. Just keep it going.
And stop taking ourselves so seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the seriousness is killing us. Literally.
Yeah,
like,
stress,
we're so stressed. the world is, for all intents and purposes, safer than it's ever been, and yet we're more terrified of our neighbors than we've ever been. There's just we focus so much on the negative, and we make that feel like reality. Well, this is more realistic. I have to be realistic. But realistically, it's usually 50-50, if not swaying more towards positive when we're trying to do anything. But we live here so much, and that play alleviates it and reminds us. It's like we don't have to be afraid of our joy, you know?
Yeah.
So true.
Well, and that was something else I was going to say, Casey, when you were sharing a bit of your story, you were talking about, like, you know, with ADHD and depression and medication and, you know, this swing of emotions, right? And when you can feel intense joy, you can also feel the dark despair. And I think regardless of what's causing that, we want to normalize that, because I think it's Brene Brown who said, you know, you can't numb selectively. And what we tend to do is we try to numb what feels bad, right? In various ways. We all have our ways of doing that. But then we can't numb selectively. So therefore, then we numb the joy. And then we end up, I think, just kind of flatlining, you know, just kind of going with the flow through life, just not in a fun flow way, like in a kind of flat way. And so we don't have to be afraid of the big emotions. We can experience the highs and we can experience the lows and know none of them last forever.
So true.
And we can just keep coming back to center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
So
good
I
stuff.
have one more question for you guys,
Okay.
but it's a big one. So if someone were listening to this and they were feeling that hopelessness or that despair of what's the point, maybe they're, you know, considering walking away from their art or even just giving up altogether. While this doesn't replace mental health, you know, treatment, as artists, what would you say to somebody who's in that dark place?
Sometimes you just need to hear, I love you. It doesn't matter who you are. I love you. And you can get through this. It doesn't last always.
Yeah. You're not alone. That's what I would have to say. I mean, I think we've all at some point experienced the darkness in our own, you know, individual ways, but just knowing that you have people and have a tribe of people that are always interceding for you, whether they know you by name or not. People are always holding you in their spirits and always lifting you up. Yeah, you're not alone.
I would ask some questions. I would ask, what help do you need? Because often it's economic, often it's financial, and also, what pressure are you putting on your art? Because if somebody's experiencing extreme financial pressure, that is debilitating in our culture. So we have to get to the bottom of that and then figure out resources for that. If you're putting too much pressure on your art, usually when you're ready to walk away, it's because you feel like you're not getting to do it the way you want, or you feel like you're not who you're supposed to be or where you're supposed to be. So it'll be like, okay, well, let's just have some fun with it. This actually happened. A friend and I are doing this right now. Like, we're sending each other prompts for just little creative projects. I'm giving him prompts for reels because he's one of those brilliant filmmakers I know, and has been walked away from it because there was just so much wrapped up in it. And it's been so fun. It's play. And it's taken all the pressure off. And when the pressure is off and you still want to do it, that's when you know you're supposed to do it. So just trying to find that pathway is what I would do.
So good.
Thank you.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for people to find you if they want to know more about the Shindellas?
Our website, theshindellas.com. That's THESHINDELLAS.com. And we're at the Shindellas on all the platforms you can think of from YouTube, Facebook, social media, IG, TikTok, SoundCloud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Chuck E.
all the
Cheese.
You say Chuck E. Cheese?
I was going to say, in response to your question, your last big question about what would you tell them, I would tell them, go stream some Shindellas music.
Yes.
I'm sure you will feel so much better after streaming some Shindellas music.
Some lullabies.
Play some Goodness Gold.
I'm happy to see you.
Yeah.
Make a playlist. I have a playlist for when I'm feeling down.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Music is so powerful.
Yep.
It is
really is.
It's medicinal, honestly.
It is.
A salve for the soul.
Well, thank you for bringing your music to the world. Do you know when your next tour is? You just ended, right? So probably not super quick.
We're plotting a new one right now. We'll get you info soon.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being part of the Work of Warriors. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for being here and contributing to this important conversation. It's so fun and such an honor to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you for sharing your story and your love and your light, and for being an advocate for all people. We really, really appreciate you, and you're doing incredible work. So thank you.
And I've learned so much in this conversation. So yes, thank you very much.
This was great.
Me too.
Crack this wide open.
Oh my God. Now we can go and seize the day.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you for being here.
We love you. Thank you so much.